Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Cajon City Council meeting. The meeting is called to order, and I'd like to ask for the city clerk to call the roll.
All council members are present.
Bonnie Price, are you here? Dr. Bonnie Price? Okay. I'm going to ask Dr. Price to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, then remain standing after for a brief moment of silence. Okay, the city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the May 28th, 2019 meeting and the agenda of the June 11th, 2019 meeting in accordance with state law, council, and housing authority policy. We have a couple of presentations on today's agenda. The first one, I'd like to invite Director of Recreation, Mr. Frank Carson, to share with us about movies in the park. Hi, Frank.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. Thanks for having me today. I wanted to briefly introduce you to our Summer Movies in the Park series. We're going to be showing 9 movies this summer. Very excited about it. They do start coming up on Saturday, June 22nd. So throughout the summer, our theme is superheroes. Originally, we were looking at just doing all DC or Marvel movies, but we were looking at the demographics and we wanted to switch it up, so we're offering a wide age group of different movies. A couple of highlights I want to show on here is we are showing Aquaman at Fletcher Hills Pool. Try to feature that. One year my staff will agree to Jaws, but right now they're doing more Aquaman. But that's the only one where we ask a pre-registration for. There's no fee. It's a free event, but there's limited capacity at the pool, so we're asking publicly to let us know if you're planning on coming so we can have that space for you. And then the other one is a special night. It's Tuesday, August 6th. It's actually coincides with National Night Out with our police department. So following their event at the Prescott Promenade from 5 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, August 6th, we're going to show Justice League. It's a DC movie with Superman, Batman, and all of them. So just a couple highlights from last year. We did have the police department come out in full force. Our mounted police were out at every event with our horses. We try to get there about 3 hours before the event, have a lot of free activities for the community to get them to come earlier out there. What we do know from recent studies is when you offer community events like this, localized in community parks, that crime does decrease by 17%. So we want to offer amenities like this to our community where we are actually taking over a park and there's more of a positive reinforcement in the park. What you see here is Wells Park last wintertime. We showed the movie Elf, and we're going to show The Grinch this coming wintertime at Wells Park also. We find that we get a big hit when we take it over at winter in that time period as well. That completes my presentation.
Thanks, Frank. Let me see if there's any questions. Questions from staff? All right, thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Nice presentation. Thank you. We now have a proclamation for the 75th anniversary of the San Diego County Water Authority. I'd like to invite the Director of Public Works, Mr. Dick Epperson, to read the proclamation and to accept the proclamation. I would also like to invite the Principal Public Affairs Representative, Mrs. Risa Barone, to the podium as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We have a proclamation honoring San Diego Water Authority today and the 75th anniversary, whereas San Diego County's history revolves around the search for safe and reliable water supplies in a region that has few natural water resources. The Water Authority was formed 75 years ago to manage water imports. Its 24 member agencies have revolutionized water supply reliability through a decades-long diversification strategy. And Now, therefore, Bill Wells, Mayor for the City of El Cajon, together with the City Council, in recognition of the Water Authority's extraordinary track record of success, its commitment to visionary strategies for meeting the region's future demands, and its innovative spirit that defines San Diego, do hereby proclaim the Water Authority to be an indispensable part of San Diego County's history and an invaluable part of its future as the region's trusted water leader. We further applaud the San Diego County Water Authority for its foundational and far-reaching contributions to the region's economy and quality of life since its formation in 1944. Signed this 11th day of June, 2019.
Okay.
Thank you very, very much. We really appreciate this recognition. Our official birthday actually was on Sunday, June 9th. I do have a couple of copies for those who would like it. It's an insert that was in the Union Tribune, a little bit about the Water Authority and who we are.
Thank you.
And then lastly, this is just a wonderful opportunity for the folks in East County. This fall, the Water Authority is going to be hosting our Citizens Water Academy. And for folks that don't know what this program is, we have over 500 civic leaders throughout the region that have come and learned about water policy, water resources, and all about water procurement. The classes are going to be held in October at Helix Water District in El Cajon. And so I do have flyers for this event. I do encourage you to share this with the community, nominate civic leaders that you think that would be interested in learning about water, and it's just another additional resource for the community. So thank you.
Bill?
Their website or phone number people could call if they wanted to contact you about that?
Yeah, I can leave that with the clerk.
If you would say it here,
Oh,
then
absolutely.
You'll be on
My name is
television with
Risa, R-I-S-A, Barron, B-A-R-O-N. My email is rbarron@sdcwa.org, and my phone number is 858-522-6714, and they can feel free to call.
Okay, well done. Bob?
Yes, I read in the paper recently that the snowpack in the Sierras is at 200% of what normal would be. Is there a possibility of flooding in California or Northern California, and what does this do for our San Diego Water Authority? Does it add a lot more water than we would normally get?
The rain and snowpack in the region and the state has been very helpful to all the water supplies throughout California. We are at really good water levels right now, and very obviously optimistic that we're no longer obviously in a drought condition, but that doesn't mean conservation and efficiency is not important, because that's just the way of life living here in California. So with that, we monitor those obviously extremely closely, and certainly we're very grateful for the rain that we've had this year, but weather is something we track on a regular basis, and all I can say is that this was a blessing for us to have this opportunity to fill up our storage, but there's still plenty more water that we could use in the state.
Well, with the 200% snowpack, will that fill up the water in the other reservoirs throughout the state?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And will there be any chance of major flooding in the...
Not that I'm aware of, but I certainly can follow up and report back to the city.
Well, it would be more in Northern California, I would assume, because
Absolutely.
That's where it would...
It won't be an issue here in Southern California.
No, we've never had one that I can remember. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Reza. I appreciate it.
Anything else? Thank you for your time.
Please, when you take your proclamation back, please tell everybody that we appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Agenda changes. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
Mr. Mayor, we have no changes to the agenda.
How about from the council? No. Moving on then. We are now consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you have any consent items you'd like to pull? Staff?
No, sir.
Angela, do we have any speaker cards for consent items?
Yes, sir. We have speakers for item 4, 6, and 8.
Let's start with that then.
For item 4, it's Ms. Bonnie Price.
Hi, Bonnie.
My usual question, was this agreement subject to competitive bidding?
I'll defer to staff on this one.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we belong to a joint powers authority for insurance purposes. And so we're working with that joint powers authority, one that we've belonged to as the majority of the cities in the state of California belong to.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that happens on all financial transactions, because it seems to me there have been a number of sole source companies that have been contracted, so that's why I wanted to know about this one.
I appreciate you asking.
For item 6, Tony Aliano.
That was 5 and 6?
6.
Just 6.
6.
Hey, sir, how are you?
Good, sir. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Always.
I understand we're voting on our contract today, and I just wanted to kind of give everybody an overview of what we were hoping to achieve and where we were headed with our contract.
Please.
As we've noticed over the past few years, we started losing more and more people. We were experiencing recruitment and retention problems, and a big part of that was due to the fact that we were drifting downwards in the median salary in the county if you compared us to many other departments. And it's very competitive out there now with people pretty much not having many problems at all in getting a job with the fire department. So we needed to remain competitive. And what we're hoping to achieve with this contract is to bring ourselves up at each rank within the median, understanding the limitations financially of our city. We know that we're not the richest city in the county, so we're not asking, obviously, for the top of the pay scale. But shooting for the median, in our hopes, is going to get us to the point where we can recruit well and retain our employees and continue to provide the high level of service that we've provided. Going down this time and working with Graham, we separated out each rank and took, instead of looking for one raise across the board, we tried to get, some of our ranks were almost 19% below the median battalion chief ranks. So we separated them out in an attempt to try to get them to the median, and that's why you see the differences in pay scales there. Instead of just one percentage across the board, we separated it out. We're not only concerned with losing new hires and people that have only been on for a couple years. There's a lot of departments that are doing open recruitment now for battalion chief level positions, and we could potentially lose people that have been here for 20 or 30 years. So that's why we've now looked at breaking those down to get everybody up to that median and looking at the contract. And I want to thank the city for just the attitude that this whole thing was approached with. I think we're all understanding we're in the same boat. And I think that we came up with a good contract that benefits us. It helps us achieve what we need to achieve, and it also still keeps the city fiscally responsible. So, thank you.
Please see if there's any questions, but don't run away yet. You're still on. Steve?
Not a question, but a comment. El Cajon firefighters and police officers are some of the busiest in the county. For instance, Squad 6, which I think a couple of your guys just left for, they did over 4,000 calls for service just on that one unit in a year. So that's
correct.
Over an average of 10 a day just for that one apparatus. So
we are very busy, and we actually at this point have the lowest firefighter per capita count in the entire county. So we're doing more with less, and we're providing, with that in mind, we're providing a very high level of care. You know, those that have come before me in this department have built a really good reputation in this county. And if you ask anybody around in this county, we still have that reputation, and this contract will help ensure that we can keep that by keeping people and recruiting good quality people.
And I'm happy to see some make goods in the area of captain and battalion chief to help retain and provide some advancement incentives to stay here in El Cajon. So I think it was well done by the city manager and the firefighters to come to a good agreement there to keep some of you guys around.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Before you go, I want to thank you. We don't get a chance to talk to you directly like this very often. I've worked in emergency medicine most of my adult life, and one of the things that you hear about all the departments, and it seems like all the departments agree that Heartland has the highest level of professionalism, and I've heard one person say it's like the Harvard of emergency medicine, and so you should be proud. We're proud of you, and you've also been recognized by the country as having one of the highest standards. Can you tell people a little bit about that rating?
Our department's rated as a Class 1 department. There's a lot of different factors that go into that. I'm sure Chief Swaney would be more well-versed in that. But essentially, it looks at response times, it looks at levels of calls, and it looks at the overall operation of our department. It's very hard to get, and we did achieve a Class 1 rating. So we're pretty proud of that.
And what's the percentage of departments that have that rating?
I'm not sure on that. Chief Swaney, do you know that? Less than 1% in the nation.
So, well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The last speaker for consent items is for item 8, and it's Travis Howard.
I didn't recognize you. This is Officer Howard. So
this is Detective Howard at the moment, and I apologize for my appearance. I will say, although I wasn't able to come in uniform today, I did arrest a gang member earlier today for tagging the city. So there is there is that fire. Jeez, man, have to go behind that. It's very difficult. Tony did a fantastic job. So I also wanted to briefly talk about the potential contract, which the council will be voting on today. I've met with all of you. I just met Councilman Ortiz, but over the years I've explained the issues that have faced the police department and especially the Police Officers Association, which represents the members that make up the police department. For many years, we also have struggled to maintain median pay, and quite recently have fallen on the pay scale quite a bit. And because of that, we've lost a lot of members, a lot of very good, well-trained officers that are looking at other agencies in the county that are a little bit more comparable paid. So with that in mind, we entered negotiations. However, at the same time, we don't only think for ourselves. We do understand that it's the city's responsibility to think fiscally responsible and to make sure that the city continues on in the future, and that our city's reserves don't get depleted, just to benefit a small employee association. So with that in mind, we felt we've came to a very good agreement between the El Cajon Police Officers Association and the city. Tony touched on a little bit. I'm going to touch on a little bit more about this process and what's involved in it. I've been involved in a process previously, and then this year with current city management was head and above anything that I've could have ever hoped for, as far as just the cordialness, the way that ideas were given and received, the priorities which were also given and received. They listened to what we felt would be important priorities, and of course I listened to what they felt would be important priorities, and we really worked together. Nobody got exactly what they wanted, but it was we come together and came to this agreement, which our membership has overwhelmingly supported. So again, I just would like to thank current city staff and ask that City Council vote yes on this contract. And again, I apologize for my appearance today. Was not planning on speaking, so.
Well, you did great. Let me see if there's any questions. Gary?
Well, I've been on a few police ride-alongs, and I was really impressed with the professionalism of our police officers, because not only are they peacekeepers, they're marriage counselors, they're psychologists, they're social workers. There's a whole array of things that make a great police officer, and I saw time and time again officers that were just really kind-hearted but firm when they were supposed to be. So I think you guys do just a fantastic job here in El Cajon. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Councilman.
And thanks for arresting the gang member doing graffiti.
You're very welcome.
Good job.
Travis, I'm glad to hear that. If you're happy, then I'm happy, because the key element here in compensation is there are a lot of retirements of we've got some age bands or service bands in this. We've got a lieutenant who's got 23 days left, and I would like to keep somebody on the force filling in that position. So I think we have at least 20 new officers in the past 12 months, if my numbers are right.
That is correct.
And we invest a lot in these men and women, and it would not be good to become a training ground for other agencies. So we need to keep them, make them promotable. So if you're happy, we're happy.
Yes, we are very happy. And just to briefly speak on that, I do know of 2 members who were recently set to retire that decided to stick it out for a few more years and give back to the city as much as they can in those last few years. And also I know of some younger officers who were prepared and ready to switch to another agency, not because they don't like this agency, not because they don't like serving the citizens of El Cajon, but just because of, again, the pay and benefits difference was so vast. And with this contract, assuming council votes yes, they have agreed to stay. So my membership has overwhelmingly supported it. We are very, very happy. And again, kudos to the staff that you've hired. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And again, pass on our thanks to the entire department. We very much recognize the level of commitment and service and the professionalism that your department exudes all the time.
Thank you very much.
All right. Is that the number?
No more cards, sir.
No more cards. All right. Would somebody like to make a motion then?
I'll move that we approve all consent items.
Second. Moved and second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, that brings us to public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time that the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions. An item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, do we have any cards under public comment?
We have two speakers. The first one is Jim Sirigliano.
Hi, Jim. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, staff. Just sort of quickly, Councilman McClellan, thank you again for allowing me to speak last time. I'll probably never see that much speak time again. And in that vein, I noticed that also item, I think it's number 11, about the delinquent sewer charges, which were brought up last time, and I'm going to follow up again, getting copies of that again, because my own mobile home park was delinquent over $11,000. And as was brought forth by Councilman Goebel last time, we probably wind up paying the interest on those liens for those fines. And then again, there's something else I just wanted to bring up, and I don't know what the chances are of this, but in filling Councilman Ortiz's seat, I noticed they mentioned about Form 700 again. And this is something that I would really like to see on the webpage, Form 700 and 460 on the webpage. It should be available to all the citizens, and with the coming year coming up. And then Councilman Ortiz, I sent an email today requesting to meet with you, and thank you. I hope it happens real soon. And I encourage all public speakers, if you really want to find out about your city council staff, take the time to make an appointment with them, because you may come away with agreement or no agreement or whatever, but at least you'll know where they stand exactly on the issues that you're concerned about. And it's very important, you know. And also, Councilman Ortiz, I noticed that on item number 21 is going to be addressing the code of conduct. And I'm happy to see that being addressed today also. Very important. And I think that's about all I have to say right now. And unless you have some questions for me. Yes, oh, good.
How do we stand on the mediation?
Yes, you asked me that last time, and I tried to give you a little bit of an update, but I can give you even
a further
more now.
Update, yeah.
Yeah, well, and like I said, in my opinion, the city didn't get their money's worth, okay? Because, and then again, addressing the code. And one little thing about for my mobile home park anyway, this process was that at the last meeting, it was agreed to a 4% from 5%.
Good.
You know, the compound. But
that's an improvement.
But one thing that wasn't agreed to at that time, and now it's being pressed upon us, is they'll do 4%, but everyone is required to do a new 20-year lease, which, as you know, I do not agree with.
Yeah.
I've studied them, and when you study them very well, it really doesn't. And it takes almost an attorney to understand some of these leases. When I first moved into my park, it was about 4 pages. Now we have 20-plus pages. And the average person doesn't understand them. I mean, and you really, literally have to get some advice, good advice, if it's available. And I always tell people, like I think I mentioned at the last meeting, that everything's negotiable. And that's what I always tell them with the owners or the management of these parks. And I'll continue, fighting about this here. But actually, Councilman McClellan, being that I was a member of the senior board at my park, which I'm no longer, I resigned, I wanted to do an initiative. But because being loyal to my board, they wanted to try this rent mediation, which just looking at it, I wasn't really happy with it, but we went ahead anyway. And I think sometime in the future, that's what I would still like to do, get an initiative and hopefully get the full support of the council about an initiative. And because that's what it takes. It's numbers. You need that support.
Yeah. Could you get your members of the park to agree to have, say, somebody go over that 20-year lease and give you some advice on it?
Well, some of us are. Some of us are trying to give advice to the people. But right now, the current board, they're not keeping up on informing the people. Only the people that were part of the initial filing, and this was based on a monthly, when they would get their increases. There's about 8 of them. They're the only ones so far. And there's a lot of things that fall into this here. Just as an example, by law, you're required to receive your yearly increase, compounded increase, 90 days before. So if someone's lease, they're going to start their new 5%, say in July, they wouldn't necessarily benefit from the 4% right now anyway.
Right.
They'll probably start it next year.
Right.
So, and then part of what I'm trying to do is let the people that want to sign a brand new 20-year lease, if they wish, according to their age or, whatever it may be, getting that information out to them. Because a lot of people in my own park aren't even aware of that, And like I said, the mediation itself, we were under a lot of pressure financially, 2 days, and it was said right there, it's going to cost you if you want to do anything more, mediator, And that was just the fact of the whole process. And like I said, there was 6 hours of wasted time that costs the city money.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, and quite expensive, by the way, these mediators. And in the future, I would hope that they would use some kind of mediation if it happens again locally, because we do have mediation services locally here instead of, up Sacramento.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions that I might answer? And thanks again for the time, for letting me speak more about this here. It's very much appreciated.
Good.
Thanks for coming.
Okay. Thank you.
Bonnie Price.
I'm back again. I want to commend the council for their choice of Councilman Phil Ortiz. Even though he was not my candidate, I was supporting a woman. We still don't have a woman, but Mr. Ortiz looks like a very capable person. I was impressed with the way he answered a very strange question and just his general background. So I think you've made a good choice, and I wish him well in his work on the council. He has good assignments, which were not given to his predecessor. I see that he is on the East County Economic Development Council and the League of Cities for San Diego. That will really inform him of what's going on in the event he did not know beforehand from his work on the Planning Commission. I also want to say that I continue my support for Villanueva. I'm aware that there is about to be some legislation on rent control, and I think that should be a warning to those who own mobile home parks that they should be considering capping their own rents. and this mediation process is going on very long, and I don't know how many people have lost their right to live in the park since this began. I know of one, at least, because she came before the council and said so. But when I look at what's happening, the rents are so high that senior citizens who are living on a fixed income, a lot of them women who never earned what they should have earned or never worked at a paying job. They did all the work for the church and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, all that volunteer work. They never got a cent of Social Security. And if their spouse died, they are left with very little to live on. So I think it's in the city's interest to put more emphasis on getting this mediation resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
No more speakers, sir.
Okay. There are no written communications on today's agenda, and we are now at public hearings. Item 10 is for delinquent refuse charges. Staff, would you tell us about this, please?
Certainly, Mayor, members of City Council. It's my pleasure to address you this afternoon with respect to delinquent refuse charges. These are trash payments or trash bills that have not been paid by the property owner. As of the staff report that you have in front of you, the agenda report, we had 350 delinquent refuge bills that had not been paid, totaling approximately $50,000. Since the time of the staff agenda report, 47 people have paid, leaving 303 remaining. This is a total $43,407.02. And just for your information, the franchise fee on that is $6,511.05. We're asking today that you consider this to be added to the property owner's property as a lien against the property and subsequently sent to the county tax assessor to be assessed on the next property tax bill, as this is due annually on August 1st. So this will be our last hearing before that date when it is due. Thank you.
Thanks, Dirk. Any questions for Dirk? Steve?
I do. You know, I think there's a misconception that people think if it gets added to their tax bill, it becomes tax deductible, and that's not necessarily the case, is it?
Well, I'm no tax attorney, but I do not think that that is claimable, although...
You know what? We've got a former assessor's office
expert right here
person, don't we? Do you have any knowledge of that?
You'd have to pay him, though, extra.
Well, I'm not a tax attorney either, but but I do have a master's degree in business and took a lot of tax classes. And my understanding is it doesn't become tax deductible because it's actually not a tax. It's actually a fee. And if you don't pay it, then it goes on the tax bill. That's how they secure it. So I certainly wouldn't advise anybody to take the deduction for that or to not pay their sewer bill or their trash bill because they think they're going to get away with not paying taxes on the amount. Of course, there's some tax people I've dealt with, they say it's DUI, deductible until audited, so my understanding in my time at the assessor's office it would not be deductible, but again, talk to your tax person.
So my suggestion to staff is when you send a letter indicating a delinquency, you might find out if this is true, because if these people are intentionally holding off thinking they're going to get a tax deduction and you tell them they're not, maybe we won't have as many delinquencies. A thought for consideration.
Thank you, Steve. Any other questions? Okay, then. The public hearing is now open. Angela, do we have any speaker cards on this item?
We have no speakers, sir.
Then I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Second. Moved and second, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, would somebody like to make a motion then?
I move that we accept the next resolution in order and authorize the city clerk to record the amount owed as a lien.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thank you. Continue with public hearings. Item 11 is for delinquents. Hold on. I see Hassan out there and the Sandag staff. We could probably put this one off until we had you up here. Why don't we let me get back to this. What item is that? Is it item 15? Item 15 is a presentation from Sandag regarding regional plan updates. I'd like to invite Executive Director Mr. Hassan Arkath to introduce his colleagues and to share this presentation with us. Thank you, Hassan, for coming.
Thank you, Mayor, Council members, City Manager. Thank you for having me. It's good to be back at this chamber. I was here when your last City Manager retired. It's good to be back, and I want to thank you, Mayor Wills, for your service at Sandag, too.
Thank you, sir.
You've probably been hearing in the news about Sandag and its effort to update the regional transportation plan. And I'm here to present to you it's our thinking at this time, very early in the process, just 2 months into it, no detail. But to clarify a few things, you might have heard conflicting reports about. As Mayor Wills would know, that Sandag Board took no action to transfer any money from any mode to another. As the Mayor will also know that Sandag Board have not taken action in prioritizing the project as we speak. So this process is in the beginning. A lot of details are not there. In the next few months, we will put more detail, and we'll be happy to come back to this chamber to present on the regional transportation plan. Many of you know that Sandag has delivered great projects and is still delivering projects in the past. This is the mid-coast that goes, the trolley that goes to the university. It will be open late 2021, almost halfway there. So the question is, what kind of regional transportation plan is suited for this region moving forward? How would the technology impact transportation? And I think you would agree that technology is going to impact the future a great deal. It's already impacting the future. Whether it's a delivery of packages through drones or autonomous shuttles or autonomous cars, the scooters, I don't know whether you have them in the city here, but they're everywhere in downtown San Diego. So these are all a result of technology disrupting the way we do things. And our regional transportation plan have to anticipate those technologies. I think you would agree no one wants to be in congestion. I don't want our region to suffer through congestion. And contrary to what you're hearing out there, this plan is all about transit. It is very true that it's transit heavy and it proposes a state-of-the-art transit, but it is a balanced plan. It's a plan that's going to build the state-of-the-art transit system, but also add capacity to the highway system everywhere in the county. And as the executive director of Sandag, I can tell you that every part of this county is important to me. East, north, south. And I never looked at any part that says, well, let me do this, then that. We're looking at this plan for every part of the San Diego County for the future. One thing to remind all of us is this plan has to meet very specific state laws. 19% per capita reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2035. Now, people would say, rightly so, we're going to all drive cleaner cars, electric and hybrid, and that's true, and I hope we do, and I think we will. But I want to remind you that the state law very clearly said the 19% is on top of that fleet mix. So the state will take credit for all the electric and hybrid, and we need to meet the 19% per capita reduction on top of that. So when I tell my board that we need to meet this law, I really do mean we need to meet it even if we all drove electric cars. It's the law of the land, and as your metropolitan planning organization, I can propose to the board any plan that does not meet the law. And the reasons are simple. If we don't meet the law, we will not be able to build any project of any kind, regardless of the funding source. Number two, and most very important, we tend to lose as a region tens of billions of dollars of state and federal funding. So an important responsibility for your metropolitan planning organization, SANDAG in this case, to put a plan forth that meets the greenhouse gas emission reductions. So our team went to work, and we are working on a bold new vision. This is a picture modeled after the National Geographic class editions talking about cities. The white spot is a potential Grand Central Station by the airport, and hoping that we be able to build mobility hubs everywhere in the region. One of them will be Grand Central, but many of them will be in the East County. We didn't arrive at the proposed plan lightly. I think first, just a few things. We're 3.3 million people. We're the nation's 5th most populous county. If taken as a state, we will be the 26th largest economy in the state in the United States of America. So we're a big and large region and economically significant region. This map shows where people live, and the darker the color, the more people live there. And you could say that we live in a very, yes, it's spread out region, but still dense region. This map shows where we work. And again, you could see very distinct employment centers. You could see the red is the largest centers, the San Diego, Kearney Mesa, and Sorrento Valley. These are centers with over 25 and in some cases 50,000 employees. But you could see there is a distinct employment center. And you've put them against each other, you see where people live and work. So with that in mind, we said, okay, so how do we design a system that offers choices? The highway obviously is the majority choice, and we need another choice to relieve the highway of congestion. This is an example where if you take the green here being the Sorrento Valley Employment Center, and the dots is where people come to that center to work. And you see they come from everywhere in the county. But significant number of them come from a very close area to Sorrento Valley. So people tell me, how are you going to build a transit system to get all these people, all these dots to the center? I'm not, nor should I. But if I build a system to get the darkest and most populous areas, then I relieve the highway by 5 to 10%. The same example, right now, pretty much transit is non-existent in our county. In our county, all-day transit trip is a 1.5%. 98.5% of us drive. This is an example where if you want to go to Sorrento Valley, you could reach all of that area within 15 minutes of driving. The map on the right, this is how you do in transit. There is no coverage. There is no transit reliable to get there. That's why not many people taking it. So when we looked at where people live, where people work, the density and the rate, and looking at the contour of growth, we form a foundation for our vision, the figure 8. That's where people and live and work, and that's where our freeway system and our future transit system would be. So we developed our vision, what we call 5 big moves. First, complete corridor. Second is transit leap. Third is mobility hub. Fourth is flexible fleets. And last is the next operating system. These 5 big moves are all important. That's why we believe our plan will be a balanced plan. What do we mean by complete corridor? Right now, we have actually a complete corridor in San Diego County. This is not the picture, but the one we have right now is the I-5. We're building a managed lane on the freeway. We're double tracking the coaster and the Los Angeles corridor. And we're building active transportation projects on the side. And we're restoring some environmental habitat. We're doing that at the same time. We clear that. We are an example in the state of California, in the country. How could you clear a corridor, not just a freeway or a rail line? By the time we're done with that corridor, the 5 will have a managed lane system. It will be 100% double track of the Los Angeles corridor, which allow us to run train every 5 to 10 minutes if we choose to. We will have many miles of active transportation. Complete corridors work. And we would like to copy the complete corridor idea from the 5 and everywhere in the county. The 52, the 8, the 78, the 805, the 15. Now, you heard me say in the past that we're not going to add just freeways. I can guarantee you, at least in my lifetime, there won't be another freeway built in Southern California or in California. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to add capacity to the system. There is many ways to add capacity through the complete corridor. We need to deploy technology. Connected vehicle technology today could add, if the technology is there, if the car manufacturers to produce it and people to buy it, you could add 30% to the freeway system capacity today with that technology without pouring much concrete. And that's where the complete corridor idea is going to come. So the first of our 5 big moves are the complete corridor. The second is transit leap. As I indicated earlier, transit is non-existent. Regions around us, this is the tunnel in Seattle, are investing heavily. Seattle is similar size to us, a little bit bigger, 3.6 million. In 2016, the voter says, build us an alternative. Here is $54 billion to do it. The third of the 5 big moves is what we call the mobility hubs. When there is transportation systems, highways and transit, they meet in an area, you should make it a transit hub, a transportation hub. You should make it a place where you build mixed land use development, where people, if they choose to, they could live and work or go shopping. These are transportation hubs. We identified about 12 to 15 in the region, some of them here in Cajon. The detail of this is yet to merge, but the transportation hubs is a place where transportation networks meet and become a place for potential growth. The fourth of the 5 big moves is what's called the flexible fleets. In many areas in the East County, in the North County, we're spread out. So there isn't a way to provide transit lines to every household. But technology exists today with what we call the flexible fleet to do some of that, to do 3 to 5 mile radiuses of commuting. And that technology is here. I think San Diego will be the first place in the country to try autonomous vehicles. And the last of the 5 big moves is what we call the operating system, the brain, the communication between the different parts of the system, the ability for any of us in San Diego County to use an app to allow us to get around with our choice, drive, take the transit, bike, walk. These 5 big moves will form our regional transportation plan. Here are some of the things we're thinking about when it comes to complete corridors and transit. We are looking at proposing to build commuter rail system that goes at a speed of 90 to 110 miles per hour. like our neighbors in Los Angeles to the north did. And to make the highway system complete corridor, you have to have an alternative. Now, people say, well, people don't take transit today. It's true. But if we build it right, if it's convenient, it's fast enough, it's frequent enough, it's safe, people might. And by the way, we are not saying that everybody is going to leave their car in the garage. If 10% of us took transit and 90% drove, we will have more capacity in the highway system. And we will have 100-year capacity because most congestion is caused by the last 5% of the vehicle entering the system. And that's what I spoke earlier about the figure 8. So let me just show you one example. So the 78 corridors, if you look at those green spots there, this is where people work. And if you look at the blue dots, this is where people come from. 50% of the people on that corridor are living within this circle that work in those green spots. 50%. Half. And so right now, if you look at what's in there is the 78. And the Transnet program has one lane each direction on the 78 of managed lane. If I do that, giving the level of amount of people working in the 78, I might feel good for a few months, but then I'm back to where I'm started. Instead, in our thinking is, put a commuter rail system that works, add the mobility hub, add the operating system, and at the end of the day, you get a complete corridor in the 78 as opposed to one lane each direction in the freeway. This is just an example that's going to be followed throughout the county. And with that, Mayor, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Before we go ahead and go to questions of council. Council? Start with Bob.
Yes, according to your own information, you say 1.5% of the people ride mass transit. Do you think this is going to make a big improvement? Because people are going to have to take 3 or 4 different modes of transportation to move from one place A to place B, and they aren't going to take that much time. They're still going to be in their cars. I think you've been smoking something that's showing you the wrong information in order to think that you're going to get people out of your cars and going to be riding transit everywhere. I'm on the transit board, but I know that they don't ride, and we just had a decrease in transit riders because of the fact that more people are working now, they're buying cars, and they're going to work. But when this county is spread out the way it is, it's one of the largest countries in the world, in the United States, counties, and when you have people spread all over the county and they're going to work, they aren't going to take 3 or 4 different modes of transportation, mass transit, to get there. And the costs are going up for them because every time you get on a different bus or a different trolley, you have to buy another ticket, unless you buy a day pass. And they just aren't going to take the time. It might take 3 hours to get to work where they can drive there in half hour to 45 minutes. So I think you're smoking the wrong stuff, and you need to get more money spent on highways and roads and not so much on transit, and keep the promises that were made in that proposition that we voted for, or else you're lying to us.
Thank you.
Mr. Ocrata, good afternoon.
Thank you, sir.
I am Mayor Wells' alternate on Sandag. We haven't spoken, but nice to see you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Series 13 forecast, it's called the 2050 Regional Growth Forecast, is a Sandag document you might be familiar with. It talks about we're going to have 1 million more people in the region by 2050. And approximately 330,000 more housing units in the county is Sandag's projection by 2050. Half of that down in the city of San Diego. So I agree with you. Where we agree is I think we do need a more robust public transit system. There's no way we can fit another 500,000 cars on our current system. It's just, I don't think we can do it in the next 50 years. I agree a robust public transit system is needed in the next, as we look ahead. And for greenhouse gas reasons, as you mentioned, we have state mandates. So I'm going to say we agree there. Where I'm concerned is when you talk about capacity, are you still a believer in congestion pricing?
Okay, that's a good question, and I appreciate your comments. Two things, and to the previous statement by Councilman McCollum, I never expected that every single one in the county will take transit. What I'm saying is, if we build transit to the right places, and by the way, if it's not more convenient than the car, nobody's going to take it anyway. So I'm saying, make it as convenient as the car when you can, and expect 10% to ride it. That's not too much because people around us expect it. Now, your congestion pricing question. I think right now, if we do any congestion pricing, we'll be penalizing people because there is no other choice except driving. So I would not, in any shape or form, recommend to the board that do any congestion pricing. But if we have a system where there is options and viable options, not one option taking 3 hours and one taking 30 minutes, two options, I think the region should look at congestion pricing. But right now, I would not recommend it in any shape or form because right now, most of us have one mode.
Let me give you my concern on congestion pricing, and it has to do with commerce. When we talk about 1 million more people in the county in the next 30 years, they're going to need food, they're going to need clothing, they're going to need discretionary income, and those things get to people by trucks on the freeway. We're not going to get bread by a bus, we're not going to get tomatoes by a trolley. They're going to have to go on a truck. And unless we increase capacity, we're going to have more trucks stuck in traffic, and time is money when it comes to these truckers because they can only be on the road so many hours a day and they get paid per mile. Bear with me a second. So I'm concerned about congestion pricing because if that's charged to the trucks, that's going to be passed on to consumers.
Sure.
And you're saying to one person, we want you to ride public transit, but we're going to still get you for congestion pricing in the cost of the goods that you pay in the trucks to get to you. So that's a concern that I have in that area. I understand induced demand, and adding an extra lane will probably just fill up the lane. But I think we need extra lanes for a different reason. And it's been talked about in the news quite a bit, and that's public safety. I know you're concerned about the Board of Supervisors' response to public safety. I think if the reports are correct, you have felt that they've done zero, zilch, nada to address the fire situation in the past.
On the 67, that's what I meant. They've done nothing to the 67 capacity for 15 years.
Well, let me read the quote then. The fires happened in 2003 and 2007. What have they done about it? If it is such a critical issue, where are the supervisors? We need to fix it, but does it take 13 years, 16 years? Yeah. We need to elect leaders to fix things, and it shouldn't take 15 years to fix a critical issue. Are you speaking about the fire service for the county? Or
No. I'm talking about the 67. I'm not a fire expert. I'm talking where they were talking. The press conference is about adding capacity to the 67. And my question is, still my question, for 15 years, we had the same issue since the fires. We should have added capacity to the 67 for safety reason. I still tell you today, it will be a priority of mine to make sure the 67 for safety reason capacity should be added. I'm not talking about the actual fire. I think the county probably did a great deal of work. But when it comes, the whole conference is about 67 capacity. We have done nothing to the 67 for 15 years.
Okay, well, I'm pleased to hear that you're in support of
absolutely
of adding capacity to 67 for public safety
unequivocal
reasons. That's good to know. Yeah. Another reason for public safety is not just about wildfires. Wildfires are an issue in the East County and the inland North County, but it's also public safety is an issue for urban areas, including San Diego, which is not often talked about. Yeah. A year ago, March, a contractor broke a regional trunk line of natural gas at the 163 Friars Road interchange. It was a catastrophic event. In fact, it resulted in a mandatory evacuation of everybody within a half a mile of that region. Mm-hmm. My office happens to be in that half a mile, and we were sent home. A 17-minute drive took me over an hour and a half to get home. And it was gridlock. It was incredible. So in order to expedite evacuation, even from urban areas, another lane on the 52 sure would have been great. That would have helped expedite people out. Not only that, but if emergency response needs to get in, it was gridlock. I hope nobody had a heart attack needing paramedic response when people couldn't get in. So I want to stress for you the importance of extra freeway lanes is for public safety of evacuation, not just for the East and North County, but for the urban areas in case of another San Bruno, in case of another 163 in Friars Road. It's critical. We're tasked with public safety first, preservation of life and property. So I really would hope to see, I know you don't like extra freeway lanes. The land is there. I'm glad to hear you talk about 67, but there are other corridors I really think we need to include in the discussion of public safety. You've heard my concerns about commerce and congestion pricing. I hope you'll consider those as well. Thank you.
We will. Thank you.
I'll go to Phil and then back to Bob. Back to Bob.
You talk about greenhouse gases. How many greenhouse gases are spent sitting at gridlock in the freeway, and how much greenhouse gas is sitting at the monitoring stations waiting to get on the freeway? How much greenhouse gas is that creating that is throwing your numbers out of proportion? I think you're really missing something by preaching mass transit when you should, as my colleague here has also said, you need to spend more on freeways because people need to move around. Once they get up to Sorrento Valley on a mass transit, then they got to go to work. So they might be 5 miles away from where they have to go. Where they're going to ride a bus 2 or 3 transfers and get into that place, or how are they going to do that? I think your thinking is not very clear as to how people are actually going to get somewhere once they get on the mass transit.
Councilmember, just a couple of things on the greenhouse gas emissions. If we build more capacity, and it's normal, people will drive more. That's proven. People drive more, especially if the cars are not totally clean, they'll pollute more. There will be more greenhouse gas emissions. I didn't write the law. I'm the person who in charge of an agency that's supposed to implement the law. We could go for a lot discussing the law itself. We're charged of not questioning the law, but meeting the law. And so I didn't write it, but right now we need to reduce greenhouse gas emission. As a result, we need to reduce vehicle mile travel. Having said that, to Councilman Goebel's question, I believe we can add capacity without adding lanes. I do believe that. But in some cases, we have to add lanes, whether it's for safety or for other matters. Like on the 52, I think we need to get some additional managed lane to make a managed lane system. But I don't think we can get out of congestion by keep adding lanes. LA tried that, didn't work. Houston, Texas built a 26-lane highway and became one of the most congested few months after it opened. So I'm urging you to give us a chance to outline a system, a balanced system, transit and highway and interchanges and mobility hubs and application of technology, that I believe when we're done, you're going to say, good, we have a balanced system. That at least provide a choice for at least 10% of us. But if we keep thinking that we're going to get out of this, and you're absolutely right, these are safety issues, these are emergency issues. If you think we're going to keep getting out of that, especially in the urban core, we're not going to do it. It's not possible. Not only from a design standpoint, from an environmental standpoint, from a cost standpoint. So I think what we're doing here is trying to provide the system of the future that's balanced, that provides the safety and the improvement whether you drive or take the bus.
Gary?
I got one follow-up.
Go ahead.
You know, on the congestion pricing, I hope you'll also consider the workplace. El Cajon's a leader in this area in greenhouse gas emissions. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. The city manager has supported, continued a work plan for City Hall that is 80 hour over 9 days. And so City Halls are closed every other Friday. That means utilities aren't being used. That means employees aren't driving on freeways, relieving congestion. And so El Cajon's got a very greenhouse gas emission congestion relieving policy just by its work schedule. Right now, from May until August, the commute is much better in the morning because the universities are out of session. Mm-hmm. We should also consider things like, do university classes really need to start at 8 a.m., clogging up the freeway? Could they start later? Are there employers who would be voluntarily willing to, one day a month or something, start their day earlier, start their day a little later? So I hope you'll also consider the workplace as a potential option for congestion
management
relief.
strategies. We are, absolutely. These are good strategies. And by the way, Sandag is on a 982 for the same reason. So.
Anymore? Hi. I just want to tell you that I know you've got a really tough job.
Thank you.
About a year ago, I wrote an article because I was frustrated about homelessness. And in the article, I outlined all of the different laws that had come out of Sacramento that were making it impossible for the cities to do what people wanted, because people operate their lives on common sense. And so people call and say, hey, I've got a great common sense solution to help solve this homeless issue. And I said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, but we're not allowed to do that for this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason. And we're constrained by the laws coming out of Sacramento. And having been on Sandag now for 6 years, I've learned a lot about how incredibly constrained we are. And frankly, a lot of times we can't do common sense things at Sandag because we have to do what is politically mandated by Sacramento. So I just wanted to say that first, and I commiserate with you. The second thing I wanted to ask you, I went down to Mexico last week at a border mayors conference, and one of the guest speakers was a technology expert, much like we've had at the Sandag retreats. And it was exciting. He talked about in the not too distant future, not 50, 60 years from now, but 7 to 10 years from now, we could have systems where we would get rid of 70% of the cars that are in America right now, that most people would decide not to buy a car. And there's a paradigm shift coming in the way we get around. And I went and talked to him afterwards, and I said, so if this is a reality, he goes, oh, I assure you it is. Why are we building mobility hubs and trolleys? And because if what he says is true, nobody's going to ride a trolley ever again, because I would much rather just have a car pick me up and take me where I'm going and drop me off. So how do you balance and mitigate the future that's coming with the billions of dollars that you're spending for a future that may be completely different?
That's a great question. And one of the 5 big moves is the flexible fleet, anticipating just what you just said. But here is the challenge. I agree with whoever that expert, I don't know who he is, but I agree with where he's going, because if you listen to the CEO of Ford and General Motors and Toyota and Uber, they will tell you in 10 years we will not be selling cars or driving cars, we will be selling transportation services. Totally. But remember, though, whether we driven somewhere, whether we gotten somewhere by a driverless car or a driver, still the car needs to go on the highway. We need capacity. It doesn't matter what form, whether I own the car or not, I'll make the trip. I need to make the trip. And like the councilman pointed out, we still need groceries to our stores. So I agree with the premise that car ownership is going to change significantly. What I don't think is not going to change is our need to make trips, whether it's in a driverless shuttle, driverless car, or driven somewhere. And that's why we think the flexible fleet is going to be important to the system. We think the mobility hub is going to be important. The question is keep coming back. Take Uber and Lyft. They exist today, right? It's easier for one to decide, I don't want to own a car. I just call Uber and Lyft when I want to. Might be a little bit more expensive, might not. But if every one of us is going to have an Uber and a Lyft, we're going to have more travel. We're going to need more capacity. And that's the premise of these mobility hubs and these potentially alternate transit routes, and where it's needed or where it's most likely to have demand, is still needed as a fixed guideway system. Obviously, we can't predict the future, but I can tell you that expert is correct in terms of our ability to travel in the future will be different, not in our own cars. And maybe we'll own cars, but not 2 or 3 in the driveway, maybe 1. So I'm not disputing that at all. Actually, we're anticipating that. Let me just also say, to your point, I don't know what the plan is going to end up being. We're still so early. We just figured out that these are the population center, employment center. This is where we have demand for travel. This is where we have congestion. By the time we finish the plan, a lot of things could happen. All I'm asking is give us a chance to finish it. And I honestly tell you, if I figure out a way to deal with how we get rid of congestion or provide safety by just adding lane, I'll tell you just add lanes. But I know it doesn't work. Other regions already proven it doesn't work, just to keep adding capacity to the system.
Thank you for answering all of our questions.
Thank you.
Making the trip out here.
Of course.
I think we're going to open it up to a public comment at this point, and then we may call you back, sir.
Good.
Thanks very much.
Be happy to. Thank you.
Angela, do we have any speaker cards at this point?
Yes, sir. We have 3 speakers. The first one is Annalie Ford.
Hello. Welcome here.
Thank you very much. My name is Annalie Ford, and I'm here to present San Diego Sierra Club. I heard the first time about this SANDAG plan through Sierra Club, and I was absolutely in love with it. Of course, now I heard very many good points from you as well as the discussion was going on, but I still am very much for it. So I ask you, please give him a chance to finish the plan. I would like to see the meaningful transportation as an option rather than to be forced to drive as we are now. We don't get anywhere without driving. And driving is stressful. It's also the biggest cause for the greenhouse gases, especially if we are driving solo, as many of us are. So I have seen the good transportation systems in many places, Stockholm, London, Paris, Washington, D.C., and especially in the little town that I was living as a young person in Finland, where I did not need a car, and I had a fantastic, very good, every 10 minutes bus system to go anywhere I wanted to go. And it was frequent, it was inexpensive, and I hope to see something like that happening in San Diego County as well. So you can imagine how delighted I was when I learned about this SANDAG vision and this 5 big moves plan. So I thought finally that is a plan that can work for San Diego, which has been my home since 1980. I'm not from El Cajon, I'm from San Diego. I don't want to drive myself if I can get from point A to point B in the timely manner. It has to be timely manner. I can't imagine that anybody else would either want to drive if they had a way to get there without driving. Yet I commuted to work for all these years that I have been working here solo, because there was no transportation system that would have been helping me. The SANDAG plan sounds safe, it is fast, it is convenient, and it will be affordable for the people who are using it. And it is exactly the kind of system that I've been waiting for. This is planning for the future. I find it very difficult to believe that some individuals in decision-making positions still will support our disastrous, monstrous highway system. Of course, the expanded things are needed, as I heard in the discussion, but we should not add into something that is so past, as the mayor was saying also. So I hope that the eyes are opening for the needs for our children and our grandchildren who will use a different kind of system, and hopefully something that SANDAC will plan, as it is not yet complete. So I hope to see that happening. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, ma'am. Let me see if there's any question for you. Any questions? No, thank you for coming, ma'am.
Thank you. You have a question, okay.
Do you realize that about 2/3 of the dollars that the mass transit uses are taxpayer dollars, and the riders don't pay that? And
I
also
am coming from Scandinavian countries where we do not mind paying taxes for the people's sake.
And
we do mind to pay for the wars.
What's your tax rate and where you come from?
It is very high. I think it is something like 30. I have lived here all my life practically, so it is very high. But I did not ever mind paying it when I lived there because it went for the good schools, it went for the free education, free health care. It went for the purposes that I believe in.
Well,
and I believe in this transportation.
If you have this mass transit idea, you ain't seen nothing yet with taxes, because that didn't include the cost of the trolleys, which are about almost $1 million a car. So you ain't seen nothing yet as far as taxes. It could be double what it is today. So.
Unfortunately, I do not know very much about those issues, but as I said, I would not mind paying more taxes for this kind of purpose.
Well, just write a check to the government and send it in then.
Well, I like to share it with other people who believe in it.
There's no law that you can't do that.
All right, let me see. Any other questions? Ma'am, thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jack Shu.
Hi, Jack. It's nice to see you at a different place.
Nice seeing you, Mayor Wells, and thank you for having me here. Jack Shee with Cleveland National Forest Foundation. And though I live in La Mesa, I come to El Cajon often and certainly support a lot of the business here in El Cajon. It's time we have a new vision. We have to do things differently. And I certainly welcome SANDAG coming to the point in which, hey, let's figure out how we're going to fix things and stop doing what we've been doing in the past that has not been working. We should have done this 10, 15, 20 years ago. And because we're doing it now, it's going to cost, because we haven't done it before. It means change. Some of that change is stuff that we're not going to like, because we've been so slow in acting. I'm a transit advocate, so let me tell you a few things about transit I believe is very important here. First of all, vehicle travel is not safe. The California train or light rail or train plan says that train travel, any kind of train travel, light rail, is 17 times safer per mile travel than auto travel. For that reason alone, we'd get rid of cars. There's another myth that people on transit are in public assistance more so than drivers. That's wrong. Drivers have not been paying their way for a long time. If drivers have to pay their own way, I think they get out right away. Transportation is one of the most costliest part of our family budget. It's second only to housing. We need to address that. Another part about cost is, for every dollar that you spend on auto travel, 80% of that leaves our region, because we don't produce cars, nor do we produce gasoline. For every dollar you use on transit, 80 cents stays in the region, because most of that is spent on staff maintenance. That's another reason why transit helps our own economy. And the less money we spend on transportation, the more money we will spend on other things in our communities. That's why we have to make this change. Luckily, other cities throughout the world have made this transition, and we can make it as well. We have to make it. In fact, the state of California said at least 19% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, which means a reduction in VMT of 3% per year for the next 10 to 15 years. That's our goal. We simply cannot expand our roadways. We have to find other ways to deal with these issues of safety, of evacuations. The safest, easiest, and cheapest way to reduce congestion is to reduce VMT. Then you don't have to build anything. And there are many ways to do that. So please consider all these things as we go forward. Thank you.
Let me see if there's any questions for you, Steve.
Did I hear you correctly to say there must be other ways to evacuate?
Oh, yes.
What would be some examples?
Well, one is to simply start pulling vehicles. So you have other evacuation plans. You can evacuate earlier. So rather than crunching on time. So those are all ways to do it. But what's interesting to me is our Board of Supervisors keep on expanding residential communities using general plan amendments, proposing other expansion of residences in certain areas when they know that there aren't good escape routes. In fact, on one of those general plan amendments, they said, we'll just use a shelter in place as a means. So I think there's bait and switch type of thing, saying, we can build here when it doesn't have a good escape route. But then, in another sense, and now they're saying, we need to expand this roadway. Well, they didn't. We have to expand the roadway and safety routes first before we build more housing.
All right. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
The last speaker is Bruce Graves.
Well, Bruce, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor and council members. My name is Bruce Graves. I'm a longtime El Cajon resident. I own a home here. I raised a family here. I'm also a member of San Diego 350. I support a bold vision that meaningfully addresses the climate crisis and supports clean air, healthy communities, and good quality local jobs. Sandag's concept of 5 big moves is a step in the right direction. The only solution for truly addressing our transportation problems in both the short and long term is making fundamental changes in the way we get around. Transit, biking, and walking need to become safe, convenient, and affordable. We need a real, useful network that can get people from point A to point B and is competitive with driving. We just can't build enough freeways to fix this. If transit is a real choice, people will choose to ride it. We need to be willing to revise or let go of old plans when they no longer serve the public interest and invest our public dollars in choices that meet today's needs, including addressing the climate crisis, air quality, and public health. Thank you.
Any questions? Thanks, sir.
No more speakers, sir.
All right, council. I'll leave it with you. Would somebody like to make a motion? And the motion is on the letter. You can also have discussion about it if you want to have discussion, but it seems like everybody's in the same place.
Well, I'm a free market kind of guy, and I think the market's in favor of the automobile right now. And I think we should oppose taking money away from the freeway system and putting into public transit right now. It's going to benefit El Cajon a whole lot.
Just to make sure, none of the proposals that are on the San Diego list right now would be to build new freeways. It would be to expand existing freeways and fix broken ones, and like it's the case of the 67, provide more safety. So, yeah.
I think the letter is very well done, and I think that more freeways need to be planned, and they need to start planning on other things other than just adding lanes. Maybe more freeways need to be added to where people can get around a little better, because evacuation, fires, a lot of other things, we need these roadways in order to clear people out in case of emergencies. Also, if we build more freeways, we'll have more ways to get to certain places, and the ones we have probably won't be as congested. So I think your letter is very good, and I would agree with Gary that people are going to drive their cars no matter what. I just visited China not too long ago, visited a China city with 44 million people in it. The freeways were heavily traveled. People were in their cars. They have mass transit, but they still drive their cars. And it just takes a little longer to get to where you're going. And that's a fact. And I think people are used to that. They plan their trips when it's more convenient traffic-wise, and you can make wiser decisions that way. So you just have to use them when they aren't as congested if you have that flexibility. So, but we need more freeways and more lanes. So thank you for the letter.
I think changes will be coming. I think technology
eventually
going to change a lot of things, but I'd like to let the free market decide.
Yeah, exactly.
And I really have trouble with government telling people how to live.
That's right.
I think one of the things that makes America a unique place to live is that we really value freedom. And every time that we give up a little freedom for security or a little freedom for it's just any time we give up a little freedom for whatever cause, it takes us back away from being that unique country in the world where people really value freedom. And I think we need to be very careful about that. Obviously, there are times when government has to intervene and make sure that people aren't hurting themselves and hurting others. But I'm not convinced that we're at that place yet. So, Gary?
One more comment.
Yeah.
History shows us that the free market gives us the most efficient distribution of resources. So I think that I agree the letter is a good thing.
Steve?
I agree with the letter, and probably the defining sentence is it is important that Sandag maintain the confidence of voters and deliver on promises to address critical road and highway projects. You've heard me explain why I think we do need extra lanes. I understand congestion, but I'm talking for public safety. And some of these roads are Highway 52, 67, one lane in each direction. In the ITOC Transnet Extension Quarterly Report in October 2017, 73% of funds spent had been spent on major corridor projects, but only 16% had been spent on local street and road things. I think we have front-loaded some of those things. I am concerned where we're going to put 1 million people between now and 2050. If you take 330,000 housing units and the average car per housing unit is about 1.5 to 2, you're talking 500,000 cars. I don't think we can absorb that. But I think the principle here is we need to keep our word to the voters from 2004. You need to pursue these new public transit things, but a new source of funding must come for it.
I'd have to agree with my fellow councilman. I think it stops for me with the shifting of funds, as Councilman Goebel said. The voters voted on this, and it's our duty to execute the will of the voters, not to shift and take monies that were earmarked and designated for certain projects. I think it stops there for me.
Bob?
Not only that, I took my wife to a Padre game a few years back, and we rode the trolley home. And because there was a young person jumping off and on, looked like a gang member or something, between different stops and things, she said, "I'll never ride the trolley again. That's my last ride on the trolley." And there are unsavory individuals. They can't put an officer on every trolley car. But people don't feel safe necessarily.
That's a big issue.
And it's, I know they spend a lot of money on safety. The record is not that bad. However, it frightens people when they see things that happen and they just won't ride it. So I think you're ill-conceived to think that everybody's going to ride the trolley, because my wife will never, ever ride it again.
Bob, along the same lines, I rode the trolley recently and stopped in downtown and wanted to use the restroom, and there is no restroom. There's no bathroom on the trolley. How can we move millions of people, hours trip, and not expect them to use the restroom, or children? It's not to say that those problems couldn't be overcome, but it does make it difficult to believe the shining future if we can't even solve the problems of people feeling unsafe on the trolley and not having anywhere to use the restroom.
People talk about congestion pricing. It's nice to hear that it's off the table until the public transit system is more robust. We hear about congestion pricing in Stockholm, in London. New York City is adopting some. But those are three cities with very advanced public transit networks, much more advanced than San Diego. In some ways, our public transit network, our web of points of presence, is very behind. So I still come back to, we need to keep our word to voters for 2004. I think you're on the right track with public transit to meet the next million people, but I think we need to find a new funding source and go to the people for that.
May I?
Oh, please, yes.
Thank you. I just want to address something you all said, and rightly so, about the Transnet. I think the mayor knows this is my first presentation to the board of directors. I had to be very honest about Transnet. We over-forecasted, and we underestimated the cost. So when you talk, don't shift the money, there is no money to be shifted right now. That's the truth. If the truth hurts, so be it. But the truth is, there is no money now to shift. Even if Sandak board wanted to shift money, there is no such thing. Transnet is $10 billion short, and will be $10 billion short by 2048. So not only there is no money to shift, even when the money starts coming in, it will not be enough to build what the list of the projects. So I just want you to know that. It's not like Sandak board has that option to shift. There is no money.
Yeah. We lost the measure for the tax increase, and I think mostly because of these issues. I think there's a real disconnect between what government wants people to do and what people want to do.
Sure.
And I think there's a lot of people who say, don't tell me how to live. Don't tell me where I can go and what I can drive, what I can do. Your job is not to do that. Your job is to provide for us transportation options.
Agree.
And so I think until we get past that, we're going to have trouble getting the money that we need.
Sure. No, I just was reacting to the fact that don't shift the money. There is no money to be shifted.
And it's a good point. You know, it's not a rosy picture in regard to the finances.
Yeah.
No matter what is done, if you move this money around and don't build more roads as the people voted for, you'll never get another tax increase to build anything new. So your plan is dead on arrival if you don't follow the plan that was voted for.
Well, thanks for engaging in the debate. It's look, it's an interesting debate, and it's easy to look at this and say there are smart people and stupid people and good people and bad people. I don't see that's the issue. I see everybody is trying to solve this massive problem with not enough resources, without not enough knowledge of what's coming down 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Mayor, I couldn't agree with you more. This is healthy debate in the region.
Yeah,
I think the region deserves to debate. Public policy debate is healthy. I agree with you 100%.
And I do admire you and appreciate you coming in and suffering the slings and arrows, because I know that this isn't the first place that you've been beaten up a bit for this, and I admire you for taking on such a difficult cause.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks. So the last thing to decide is the letter. I'd like to make a motion that we send the letter of opposition as written.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Please vote. And ladies and gentlemen, as a mercy, go ahead.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
We're going to take a short break so everybody can get a drink of water, and thanks very much for being involved. We'll be back in 5 minutes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go back to where we left off before this with number 11, continuing with the public hearings. Item 11 is for delinquent sewer charges. And I'm going to ask Dirk Epperson to fill us in on this.
Well, we certainly saved the best one for second here, so you guys are in for a treat because this one's the sewer one, not the trash one. And
pretty excited.
Yeah, it is exciting. When we sent in the agenda report, we had 796 delinquent sewer accounts, totaling $122,000. Since then, I'm happy to report that 323 have paid, leaving only 473 outstanding, and that's as of this morning. Our staff actually worked really hard through lunch to come up with this new information. So I want to thank staff for working so hard on that. Appreciate your help. That leaves a total of $134,000, and this is due to some additional bills that became delinquent since. So we kind of had a give and a take here. But the total is $134,744.98 is what you're considering for liens against those properties and forwarding the list to the county tax assessor for billing on the next property tax bill. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dirk. Okay, council, any questions or comments? That's what we'll ask next. Any cards?
No speakers, sir.
All right. I'm going to actually have to go through the process of closing the public hearing, so I make a motion to do that.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right. Somebody like to make a motion?
I'll move that we adopt the next resolution or order and authorize the city clerk to record the amount owed as a lien of the property and forward a list to the county tax assessor.
Second. Moved and seconded. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right. The last public hearing item, number 12, is for adoption of new fees. I'll ask staff to introduce this item, please.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is my item. Each year, the city conducts a review of its schedule of fees for determining whether certain services applications, such as for permits and things of other work requested by third parties, if those fees should remain the same or should be changed. The City Council will generally support fees that reflect the reasonable cost of services rendered, seeking full cost recovery. This means that changes in the manner of providing the services and the salaries of personnel involved will justify a change in the fee. Sometimes the changes will require a reduction of a fee due to efficiencies in the process. Most of the time, the fees, though, will be increased as a result of salary increases and costs of doing business since the last review. And there are those situations where no fee was charged before, and the staff is now recommending a new fee should be added. This year's review is typical for the city. The agenda report details the proposed changes which come from the city clerk's office, the building and fire safety and planning divisions of the community development department, and the police, public works, and recreation departments. State law requires that fees imposed by the city cannot exceed the cost reasonably calculated to provide the service. Therefore, the departments have each reviewed these proposed changes and have backup materials to support the requested changes. The city clerk, police, and recreation fees, if approved, would take effect on July 1st, 2019. The community development and public works fees, if approved, will take effect on 60 days following adoption, which is August 10th of 2019. This concludes my report, and I'm available for questions on the process. Directors are available to provide responses to specific changes being proposed by their departments.
Thank you, Council. Council, have any questions? Yeah, I just have a little question. You mentioned the Park Service and more fees. Are these fees that would be paid by families and kids who wanted to play soccer or dance or go to art classes? Is that what we're talking about mostly?
Yeah, generally speaking, they're probably more rental fees. I think Mr. Carson will have the specifics. Besides, they are listed in the report, but maybe he can give you a quick summary of what his department is proposing.
Thanks, Frank.
Most of the fees that we are considering or that council originally adopted in 1997, we do an annual fee study and we evaluate what our community can afford. Right now, we are at the lowest or second to lowest on all of our fees. We do recognize that we have to raise our rates, being that the last 2 years we've had a minimum wage increase. Now it's $12 an hour. In January, it'll be $13 an hour. So in order for us to even be cost effective with a special revenue fund, we have to moderately raise rates, and we've evaluated what the market can bear, and we believe that these rates can be adjusted and available to our community. We also offer scholarships to every household in El Cajon.
That's what I want to hear. So if a kid just honestly can't afford to pay the fee to play soccer, there's a remedy for that?
Yes, sir. There's at least 50% we can cover the cost through scholarships and grants that we get through Target and other agencies.
Thanks for clearing that up. You're set. Thanks, Frank. Okay, Council, let's ask Angela if we have any speaker cards for this item.
We have no cards, sir.
All right, then I'm going to make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Move and second, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Any discussion, or would someone like to pursue the motion?
Move adoption.
Move and second, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Okay, great. There are no administrative and no commissioner reports today. Item 13 is my activities report, which is as reported. Item 14 is a legislative report update, and I would like to ask Assistant City Manager Vince DiMaggio to provide this update.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. There is nothing new to report on the things that we've discussed here in the past that's currently working its way through the legislature. I will give a brief update because it was mentioned earlier today on the two rent control items of interest. AB 36 is one of them. It was pulled by the author late last week, so it's 98% chance nothing's going to happen with it this year. AB 1482 was approved in the Assembly, went on to the Senate, and has kind of found itself mired in the Senate process, so it's not likely to get out of that process. It's got a better chance than the first one, but neither have a good chance of making it through the bodies or going to the governor. So that's the update on that, and that's all I have at this point. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Vince. I appreciate that. All right, item 15 is a presentation. Oh, we've done that already. This brings us to item number 16, compensation for executive and unrepresented employees, A29, city manager and city attorney. First, I need to state that the California law requires that prior to taking final action on the salary schedule or compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits of what are known as local agency executives, the legislative body shall orally report a summary of a recommendation for such final action. That means I have to read this to you. A local agency executive includes any employee of the city who is not subject to the Myers-Milius-Brown Act and who is the city manager, the assistant city manager, a department head, or whose position is held by an employment contract, which includes that of the city attorney. For the purpose of disclosure, this report includes action on salaries and compensation in the form of fringe benefits for the following local agency executives: City Manager Graham Mitchell, Assistant City Manager Vince DiMaggio, City Attorney Morgan Foley, City Clerk Angela Cortez, Director of Community Development Anthony Shute, Director of Finance Treasurer Clay Cajon, Director of Human Resources Marisol Thorne, Director of Information Technologies. Excuse me for a second. My eyes, just bad luck. Director of Information Technologies Sarah Diaz, Director of Public Works Dick Epperson, Director of Recreation Frank Carson, Fire Chief Steve Swaney, and Police Chief Jeff Davis. Now for the proposed changes. First, it is proposed that each of these employees receive a general salary cost of living increase of 2.5% effective June 15, 2019. Second, it is also proposed that each of these employees receive an increase in his or her cafeteria plan of $50 each month beginning in January 2020. I should note that the current benefit is $1,150 each month. Third, it is proposed that each of these employees receive compensation in the form of a monthly vehicle allowance in the amount of $300, with the assistant city manager receiving an additional $100 as a vehicle allowance. In addition to the general salary increases, it is proposed that the following local agency executives receive special increases as market adjustments as follows: Director of Community Development, 10%, Director of Human Resources, 5%, Director of Recreation, 7%, and Police Chief, 3%. As further compensation, it is proposed that the Fire Chief and the Police Chief each receive a non-personal stipend of $6,000, one half of which would be paid in July and the other half paid in December. This concludes the summary of proposed changes to salaries and compensation in the form of fringe benefits to the city's executives as is required by law. Now, before we move along, is there a report from the city manager on this matter?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, very briefly, as you know, one of the goals that we've set this year as part of labor negotiations is to bring our employees that were woefully behind the market up, maybe not to market, but closer to that market median. When looking at your executive team, all but one of them was below market, and we are recommending giving the same cost of living adjustments that we've given to the MPEG, the MEA, and the fire department. We think that's reasonable. And then, as the mayor indicated, there are several positions that we're advocating for a market adjustment. You should note that this market adjustment only brings one employee above market, but the others still remain below market by an average of 7%. So by no means are we the highest paid executive team in the county, although the best. But it's something that we thought was important to bring some folks that were below 20%, that were further below 20% than from market median up to something a little bit more reasonable.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Next, I'd like to ask City Council if you have any discussion before we ask for comments from the public. Okay. Angela, do we have any speaker cards for this item?
No cards, sir.
All right. Council members, is there any further discussion? All right. At this point, we do have we looking for a motion.
Move adoption. Second.
All right. We have a motion, so move and second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, we are at activity reports for council members. Councilmember Kendrick.
As reported.
Councilmember McClellan.
As reported.
Deputy Mayor Steve Goebel.
As reported.
Councilmember Ortiz.
As reported.
Councilmember Ortiz, item 21 is also yours. Will you tell us about that, please?
Yes, this is something that I spoke about before I was appointed with regard to a code of conduct. I know that a lot of different cities have a code of conduct, and I know that any good and healthy organization has some kind of mission statement, vision statement. I know when I was in college, I was in a fraternity, and we had a creed that we lived by, and if a member was outside of those the creed's standards, we would frequently reference that. Given my predecessor, I think it's appropriate to adopt a code of conduct. We're leaders of our city, and we should be representing it with the utmost integrity. And I think it's going to be a good thing if we adopt a code of conduct or some kind of code of ethics that city councilmen, board members, commission members can abide by. I think it's going to give the public a good tool to know how their council members and mayor and other elected officials and appointed officials should be conducting themselves, not only inside the council but outside as well. And it's for us as well. I don't think anyone here on this council is going to need to be called out for any kind of code of ethics, but we're not going to be around forever, and I believe it's going to serve as a good barometer for our voters and future future generations to establish it, post it on the website so voters and constituents can see that standard. So I have some words and I've drafted something, but I'm open to any input or feedback with regard to it.
Would you like to read us what you drafted?
Don't have it in front of me. I'm a little
That's fine.
unprepared, but yeah. High level. I'm thinking high level views, nothing.
So would you like to give that draft copy to the staff, have them work on it, and bring it back at the next council meeting for approval?
Yeah.
Would that work for you, staff?
Yeah, what we were thinking is we could also look at Mr. Ortiz's language, maybe look at some other examples from other cities and give the council maybe some options for a discussion purpose, and then make a decision at that meeting if that's the direction from the council.
Great. I think it's great. Let me see if there's any speaker cards for this item.
No cards, sir.
All right. Just for our formality, I have to make a motion to close the public hearing then.
Second.
Move and second, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, council, I think it's a great idea. Everybody understand then that we'll send it on to staff. They'll bring it back for final approval. I'll make a motion to do just that then. Move and second it, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, there are no joint council member reports today. There are no general information items for discussion. Item 22 is the introduction of an ordinance amending Chapter 3.2 of the El Cajon Municipal Code. Staff, would you tell us about this, please?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is mine as well. When the voters approved the adoption of the city's charter, one of the more notable sections approved was Section 400, relating to the city's ability to conduct purchasing and contracting for services, including the construction of public works projects, without the necessity of complying with certain state laws. One of the ways to take advantage of this flexibility is to exempt the city from provisions of the Public Contract Code, which recognizes that that code's procedures are not considered matters of statewide concern, leaving charter cities such as El Cajon to establish their own procedures. The city's ordinance on bidding and purchasing procedures, Chapter 320 of the Municipal Code, still restricts the city to those procedures found in the Public Contract Code. The proposed amendments before you today are in an effort to take advantage of our charter status, and in particular Section 400, to adopt more flexible procedures and reasonable thresholds in procuring goods and services, and to solicit bids for the construction of public projects, commonly referred to as public works projects. Our office, with the involvement and tremendous assistance of the Finance and Public Works Departments, are proposing amendments to Chapter 320, which we believe will speed up the processes utilized by the departments and the purchasing agent in the solicitation of goods, services, and works. Key points are that the city no longer would require formal bidding for public works contracts under $200,000 in value. Currently, any public project in excess of $5,000 requires compliance with formal bidding and award by the City Council. This single change will allow more common and modest capital improvement projects to move more quickly through the system, from conception to initiation of work and naturally to completion. Another notable change is to waive the need for bidder securities on these same projects, those that go up to $200,000. This has the potential of gaining more aggressive bids and potentially more competitive bids from contractors on these smaller projects where they don't have the need to obtain the bid. Finally, the changes would allow the city manager to process the solicitation of goods and services up to $75,000 in value without the need to bring each of those contracts to the City Council. This change also creates greater flexibility and improved services with our vendors. That concludes my report, and I'm available for your questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Morgan? Yes.
So city manager has authority up to $75,000 without council approval. Public Works is under $200,000, but it still has to come to council for a vote?
No, it doesn't have to go to formal bidding. I'm sorry. The formal bidding itself doesn't have to go through, or the bidding process doesn't have to go through formal bids. The city manager could approve public works projects up to the $75,000, but between the $75,000 and the $200,000, it would come to the City Council.
Okay.
So how do we know we're getting the best price if we don't have a formal bid, or is there some informal bidding process that takes place?
That's correct, Councilmember Kendrick. There is presently in place, but at lower levels, the process where we use competitive solicitation of proposals. We have certain levels that allow shopping for open market purchases, and then above that it would be receiving sealed quotes. So we do an RFQ process as opposed to the RFP or the request for bids. This would simply extend those thresholds so that we could take advantage of those same procedures. And they're built into the ordinance, requiring our purchasing agent to go forward and obtain them through not less than three sources and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thanks. Angela, do we have any speaker cards?
No cards, sir.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I got one more comment.
Go ahead.
You know, in light of a recent situation with another agency who had a contract related to somebody associated with the district, we certainly want to be aware, transparent with the public, that we don't get in that same kind of situation. So although we are increasing the authority, perhaps through a vote, we certainly want to emphasize the responsibility that comes with that discretion.
Fair enough. All right. Any further discussion, or would someone like to proceed with a motion?
Move adoption.
Moved and seconded, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote. And with your permission, sir, I'll read the title to the ordinance.
Please.
An ordinance amending Chapter 3.20 of Title 3 of the El Cajon Municipal Code addressing bidding and written contracts.
Thank you. There are no second readings of ordinances on today's agenda. We are now at closed session. Mr. City Attorney, will you please recite the title and lead us into closed session?
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council will be meeting in closed session for a conference with its legal counsel on existing litigation pursuant to paragraph 1 of subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956.9. The name of the case is Murphy and Pitsley et al. Versus the City of El Cajon.
I make a motion that we adjourn the closed session. Moved and seconded, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Ladies and gentlemen, we won't be very long, and after closed session, we'll come back and conclude the meeting.
A matter of existing litigation, and then the case as identified before we went into closed session. The City Council unanimously approved the settlement of the case that is described in the agenda. The vote, as I said, was unanimous, but was made on the motion of Mayor Wells, seconded by Councilmember Goebel. The action was also to authorize the city manager to sign the settlement agreement on behalf of the city.
All right, then. This brings us to adjournment. The adjourned regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council and El Cajon Housing Authority held this 11th day of June 2019 is adjourned until Tuesday, June 11th, 2019 at 7 o'clock p.m. Thank you very much.